Dave, welcome to Floor Talk. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate it.
So Dave, you're here today. You are ringing the closing bell to highlight the premiere of Tune Out the Noise, which is a documentary which chronicles the financial revolution that changed the way the world invests. So tell me about that.
Well, it's a big story, and it's one that we think is really important for every investor to know about. When you look at the kind of the evolution, if you will, of investing, the idea of indexing is one that is really kind of built in the story. So we talked to a lot of the academics who were there in the 50s and 60s who looked at data. They got a hold of big computers and they started asking the question about markets and how people invested. And what's happened is we've seen a major shift towards indexing over the last 30, 40 years.
Now, Dave, throughout the film, we see how academic ideas are transformed into practical investment solutions. So from your years working directly with clients and advisors, what's been the most powerful way that this evidence-based approach has changed how everyday investors think about their financial futures?
Well, I think the biggest change is probably what I'd call the redefinition of investment advice. When you look back to 30, 40 years ago when I started in the business, it was really a high transaction, high commission, a lot of activity, a lot of noise. And that was really what investment advice was about. And what's changed is this kind of recognition that capital markets work really well. Prices reflect information, and you're able to actually invest in a way that's smarter. Smarter in terms of cost, low cost, smarter in terms of diversification, being very diversified, smarter in terms of tax efficiency, being very tax efficient. Those things are really good things for the investor. And so when you look today versus what we had 40 years ago, the noise has been tuned out to some degree. The activity, the daily activity of trading and reacting to emotions like fear and greed have kind of pushed it to the side, and we've gotten to a more disciplined, efficient approach to investing in capital markets for every investor.
Now, you've worked closely with several of the pioneering figures that are featured in the film, including David Booth and Eugene Fama. Can you share a meaningful moment or conversation with one of these individuals that influenced you and your understanding of markets?
Sure can. We've had 5 Nobel Prize winners associated with the firm, so that's been really, really cool. When I look back at my career, even before I started, my first interview was with a gentleman named Merton Miller, who was a Nobel Prize winner in finance, and Merton was on our board at the time. And I just happened to be lucky enough as an interviewee to be in the same building with Merton. Merton went to lunch with us and sat me down and mentioned the 3 things that I just said earlier. That there's 3 things in finance that are going to really help you as an investor. First, keep your costs low. Second, diversify completely. And third, be tax efficient. And lastly, markets work. So that was really kind of for me a kind of a bellwether discussion. It was something that I have always thought about in my years at Dimensional, and has resonated really well. And I think it's something that every investor, if they could do that, they'd be in a great shape in terms of investing.
Now, the film shows how challenging it was to introduce these revolutionary ideas to Wall Street. Even today, we see active management and stock picking remain popular despite decades of evidence. So what do you think will be required to overcome this?
Well, I think it's a lucrative business. So that's really kind of how advice was built in the early years. I tell a story about buying Boston Chicken when I was an early investor, and that was really built on this idea that an analyst had an idea for me, gave me the information. I thought that was a great pick, and I didn't diversify. I bought one stock, and I ended up losing about half my wealth at the time. So that was the environment that we were faced with. I think what's changed over time is just, more advice, better vision and better education around the capital markets, why there is a equity premium, how small cap stocks or value stocks work, why international stocks are helpful to a portfolio. So all of those things are things that we're learning, and we're hopefully educating and training clients so that they can actually be more disciplined and have a better chance at a great investor experience. The movie is just that. The movie is sort of a compilation of a lot of really, really smart people. Errol Morris has taken those people and interviewed them and hopefully built stories that I think are digestible to the average client. We talk about my mom as being an average client. She's not an investor, she's not a financial person, but she's somebody who would listen to these stories and tune out the noise and recognize that there's a story, a personal story behind it. And hopefully there's a theme and a kind of orientation around capital markets that she picks up along the way as well.
All right, and finally, Dave, looking ahead, what do you see as the next frontier for evidence-based investing? And how's Dimensional preparing for these future challenges while staying true to the core principles we see in the documentary?
Well, the great thing is the concepts don't change. So all the things I mentioned before, diversification, low cost, those are kind of standard. I think what's happened recently, I'd say, is the kind of the innovation through technology. So technology has made things more efficient. When you think about how the capital markets are delivered to the average investor, when I started, it was individual stocks, then we got into mutual funds, and now ETFs. Today, we're starting to launch separate accounts that are actually very, very low minimum separate accounts because of the efficiency of trading in custodial costs and so forth. So I think the theme there and the buzzword would be customization. The advice business and advice model now is very, very customized. Advisors are able to work with clients on estate planning issues and tax issues and charitable giving and even family dynamics. And they're doing that all with a basis of investment that is, again, low cost, diversified, and tax efficient. So I think there's going to be new wrappers, and there's going to be more ways that the average investor is going to be able to access the capital markets. And that's kind of where Dimensional is now. We're working on that. Foundationally, nothing changes. We believe in this approach. We believe in markets. We believe that prices reflect information, so we don't try to guess on markets. But we do think there's actually wrappers and there's different vehicles that are going to help the individual investor invest properly going forward.
All right. Well, Dave, congratulations on the documentary, and thank you for joining me on Floor Talk today.
Thank you.